Good evening and welcome along to this very special Tuesday edition of Not Another Rangers podcast. The nets should be his sacred space where shots he'd catch with skill and grace. But lately doubts begin to bloom as errors creep with impending doom. A fumble here, a parry wide, goals conceded with nowhere to hide. The fans at Ibrox starts to sigh as wasteful points drift on by. The banners wave, the songs still ring, but whispers grow of what the future might bring. For in the goals, a keeper must be sound as the exit door where Jack Butland is bound. Joining me to discuss all that and more tonight is my very good friend, Mr. Ross Clark. Ross, how are we, mate?
Mate, I'm absolutely outstanding after that. That was great. That was like Rabbi Scheme Burns. I was proud of it.
I do try, mate. I do try.
And very topical at the same time, Davey. Very topical. I like that.
Well, that's it. I think there's a lot of places to start, so we might as well just start with Jack Butland. And last week we did have a discussion in regards to him, but I think in terms of how social media, if that's to be a barometer of where the fan base is, I think everybody has jumped on the Jack Butland needs to come out the firing line in this side of the debate. Where do you stand on it, Ross? Because we spoke at the start of the season and we had mentioned likes of the game against Ajax was a major concern for us. We thought that was him sort of continuing on for the Celtic Cup final last year. And then he's had, that I don't know if anybody has saw it, but if you look at the video that was certainly on social media the day, there were 17 mistakes in that, and that wasn't all of them just for this season. So really, I don't remember a Rangers goalkeeper having mistakes in the regularity and the magnitude that Jack Butland has had this season.
Mate, I'm glad it only went back to the start of this season because he was every bit as bad towards the tail end of the season as well. Mate, Ferguson's in a... First of all, I'd like to say hello to the guy that was in the YouTube comments crucifying me last week for going against Jack Butland. But when you see it laid out in front of you, there's absolutely no way the jury could find him not guilty, is there? It's genuinely... It's for me, mate, it's the basic errors. How many of them are go to botty's feet hundreds of time and gets caught? How many are shots that are straight at him that it's just go through him? And don't get me wrong, he can produce world-class saves, but when I was playing junior, I made a couple of worldies, but you find your level, and as I say, for me, he's a bad keeper that sometimes performs really well, not a really good goalkeeper who very rarely performs badly. I thought that was a bit damning. The fact that the voices are getting a bit louder, because up until the start of this season, I think he was very much untouchable with some of the fan base. I think Clement fed into that with the whole last season. There's nobody in the team that's not for sale except from Super Jack Butland. He's the only irreplaceable object in the team. And I just think to myself, like, how have we ended up in the position where we've took... I quite like Liam Kelly. I don't think he's a Rangers number one. First person to say it, but how have we got into the position where we either play a guy whose form is through the floor or put in somebody that was statistically the worst goalie in the league last year? How have we got to that stage?
Well, see, that's what I wanted to ask you, because obviously the level that you've played at, and obviously the level that your brother is an international goalkeeper, for that to happen in terms of the regularities, mistakes, what is that? Is that mentality? Is that the fact that he's not got a settled back four, back three, back five in front of him that it chops and changes? Because to me, they look like concentration errors because they're elementary goalkeeping errors that you're expecting any goalkeeper a decent standing to save. He's not even been tested. The one at Dundee last week and the one at the weekend, you would put your hat on your goalkeeper saving them. So what is that? Is it a mentality thing? Is it back to, because I always said when Wes Foderingham was in goals for Rangers, I says there's a difference in Wes Foderingham being a championship goalkeeper for Rangers to being a premiership goalkeeper for Rangers. And I remember me people think 4-0 or 4-1 at Tynecastle, and at 4-0 down, he made a save for a free kick that wasn't really top corner, but he stuck a hand out in the Hearts. I think it might have been Jamie Walker went up to him and gave him a cuddle as if to say, "Oh, good save, mate." And he took the acclaim. You're 4-0 down at Tynecastle. So I don't think he got what a Rangers goalkeeper was all about. And that's where I stand with Jack Butland. I'm not sure he's getting what a Rangers goalkeeper is all about.
When you play for Rangers, it's concentration. 95% of the game you're not involved. But as you say, looking at that video, the last 3, probably 5 or 6 out of the last 7 on that are ones that if you'd done that playing for Yoker Juniors, you'd get in the changing room and you'd get a scheme down because you've sold the nickels in a game that you had to win. And the Motherwell one, you can tell me all you want that the back 4 changing, that's no good. Mate, the Motherwell one's a shot that's right at him, that he's took his eye off the ball and it's hit him in the shoulder. Then right after that, you've got the one against Dundee, it's the exact same. And the one at the weekend's a shot for 25 yards on the half volley that goes right through him as if he's not there. So you're not going to tell me that that's the defence's fault. That's a goalie who's he's got ability, but as you say, is it concentration or is it confidence? Because he came into the Stoke City team when he was a young boy, performed admirably, got his England caps. This is a guy that's been capped, is it 8, 9, 10 times for England? And so you're not going to tell me there's nothing there, but what happened there, what happened at Stoke is he has a dip in form and then he never recovers. To me, that's what it is. Now, he got injured. Liam Kelly came in. I listened to Andy Halliday. I know I say that quite a lot on here, but I listened to Andy Halliday on Open Goal, and he said Liam Kelly came in and played 6 games for Rangers, including an Old Firm game and a European tie, and we won all 6 of them. So you're not going to tell me that Liam Kelly... I don't think Liam Kelly makes that mistake 3 games in a row when you look at Motherwell, Dundee, and the one at the weekend. I just don't think Liam Kelly makes that amount of mistakes. But again... Sorry,
I know that's what's going to see. So see with that, obviously when you're in a football team and you're playing as a goalkeeper and you've either got a back 3, 4 or 5 in front of you, it's about building relationships and establishing them. Do you think that the guys in front of him don't have the trust in him?
Well, you're sitting watching the game. Have you got trust in him every time the ball goes near him? Because I know that every time he's got the ball at his feet, my arse is going like the clapper. So I don't know what it would be like to play with him, and you don't know whether he's going to throw you under the bus. Again, going back to that highlight reel you talk about earlier, I say highlights, it's lowlights, but the amount of time he's got on the ball sometimes with the ball at his feet, and he ends up sharing it out for a shy or gives it straight to the opposition. For me, that's the difference when Liam Kelly came in. We built up a lot of play. Obviously, we had the Danilo Igamani, which was working a dream that we've never went back to, which doesn't really make sense to me either. But Liam Kelly was taking the ball and folk were making an angle and he could play out for the back. With Jack Butland in goals, the defenders know that it's never going to come to them. So all they do is, as soon as the ball goes back to them, they just about turn and start heading for a halfway line because they know it's getting shelled long. What I would say, Davey, is, and I'd like to know where you stand on this as well, seeing as there's only me and you on, I suppose I better ping some questions back at you, but Barry Ferguson is in a horrible, horrible situation for Thursday night, because if he plays Jack Butland and Jack Butland drops another one in, folk are rightly going to be saying, why did he play? But if he was to drop Jack Butland and Liam Kelly was to do Liam Kelly of last season things, or the Liam Kelly against Hibs where he comes out for a corner and he's in between a rock and a hard place for me. I wouldn't like to be in Barry Ferguson's shoes trying to pick whether to stick or twist for this big European game coming up. What do you think of that?
It's got a lot of traction. Our mate for Jersey, Grant Mackay, was causing a lot of trouble on X yesterday when he was talking about he thinks you can't take Butland out regardless because he's what you call the best goalkeeper of the three that you've got at the club. But at the same time, whilst I understand that argument, I think it's all about setting standards. For me as a Rangers supporter, it was always about setting standards. You go back to Walter Smith and when McGregor had the incident with the Vickies and the Scotland squad, he dropped him for the rest of that season and he didn't play the title run in. And I think Neil Alexander got about 10 games under his belt during that time. And Walter Smith didn't care. He took Ferguson, who was the captain, out, and he let Davy Weir lift the trophy. All right, Ferguson was kind of half-holding it with him. But I think a manager has to set standards. And if you fall below these standards, an example has to be set. The magnitude of the game doesn't come into it. It's all about, moving forward. And I don't think we're going to be moving forward with Jack Butland as the number one next season. I don't think another manager coming in, a different goalkeeping coach, a sports psychologist sorts him out. I think you've said it before. He's reverted to type. When he was the England number one, I think it was under Steve McLaren, he made a huge error in a game, never played again. When he was at Stoke in 2019 under Nathan Jones, made a collection of errors, never played a game, became a second, third choice keeper the last 5 years of his career up until coming to Rangers. It's just unsustainable, I think, to think that he's got a future with us. Do you depreciate his value? Would he start playing, the game by the fact that he's got a good wage, Ross, and it might be difficult in the dressing room? I think he's too good a professional to do that. I think if he wasn't playing, he'd be looking to move back down south. And I think Scott Kearney, I've not got access to the comments, but you're right, mate. Andy Gorham was put on the transfer list by Walter Smith as well. So there is another example. So to close it off, Ross, I think we're better addressing it. What do you think he'll do on Thursday? Do you think he'll drop him? Personally, if I was a Rangers manager, I would drop him. But what do you think Barry Ferguson will do?
I think he'll drop him, mate. I think a lot of people have said, I was arguing with a few people, not arguing, but having a debate on Twitter with people, which I like to do, Davey. I like to go on there, and if I don't agree with somebody or somebody doesn't agree with me, we have a bit of back and forward. We do it all the time. I've got some quite controversial opinions about Butland that folk are now seeing the right. Igamani's value at Christmas time, Diamandi's value, Cortez being crap, Cortez being good. I quite like having a bit of that back and forward, as long as it doesn't start getting that abusive way. But what I would say is when it comes to this decision, Ferguson's got to get it right. I think he will drop him based on his post-match presser, when he was at the presser or the post-match interview, where he said, "I've told Jack that was another terrible mistake," and more or less you've seen this happen too many times now. So I think for Jack Butland's health and welfare, he needs to get took out the firing line. What I would say, Davey, and I agree, somebody says it, potentially Scott earlier on in the comments, if you drop him, he doesn't get back in, because he's already been dropped when he hurt his leg and when he had his baby. He's missed games, and you think to yourself, right, he's been out for a few games, he's back in now, thrown in clanger after clanger. Then he goes away has two good games against the European games, saves a couple of penalties, and you're like, it's got to be on cloud nine. Goes back to the league, starts throwing them in like that, like me in a 90s rave, like that, throwing them in. But no, I personally, I think Liam Kelly will get a shout, and I think it will help us, because I think it will help us control possession with him using the ball at his feet and dropping in. I think we'll go back to the 5, and I think that will then give him Yefty, Yilmaz or Tavernier to be able to take the ball into the goalie and relieve the pressure.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I was going to come to this later in the podcast, but since you've touched on it, I think it'll be a good debate, because I think we're going to line up our teams slightly different for how we think we should play on Thursday. But there's an element of what you talk about, which I subscribe to. You mentioned it when you were talking about Jack Butland, the Danilo Igaman thing. And I think it's pertinent, because that is the run of form this season where I think we looked our best. I said in the group chat yesterday that on Thursday, I would go with a back four, a Tav, Proper, Balogun and Ridvan. I'd have Sterling just in front. So by doing that, you have the flexibility to switch to a 5. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And sort of move Tav and Ridvan forward in the hope that you bring the Williams boys back with them, because ultimately that's the best part of your fullbacks game, wing-backs game, is going forward and playing in the opposition's half. I think it would allow Raskin and Barron to go and retrieve the ball. And then if they win it, give it to, and I said I would revert back to the Gerrard formation. So you play with 2 10s, and my 2 10s would be Černý and Danilo, because they've played like that together before in Holland. I think it was 20 that they played that, off a central striker. So there's that partnership there. And I think Iggeman's best through the middle, and we've got to use him as a number 9. We're depreciating this boy's value to accommodate Dessers. Dessers is 31-year-old, and we're never going to get back what we spent on him. We might get a fee for his goals return, but we've got to be using our best assets. And for me, that's kind of where I would like to start with you, Ross. So do you think this is where Dessers gets phased out between now and the end of the season? And if he does play Dessers, what does that say for Danilo and Iggeman? Because surely they deserve their chance. Dessers has had his running 6-7 games now, and it's not really worked.
Mate, you would have seen the stat on Twitter the other day. I don't know where it came from. Iggeman, his first 14 games, was it 12 goals, 3 assists or 4 assists? And his last 14 games or whatever it is, 1 goal against Celtic for the bench, no assists. We were seeing the best of Iggeman as a 9 with Danilo just mopping about in that space in behind him, because Iggeman could drop the play and it let Danilo go ahead of him, or you've got the option where you've got the floaters. Mate, I'm with you. I've been saying on here for the large majority of the season, potentially even into last season. I don't understand why we're no reverting back to what worked under Gerrard. Just going proper compact in the middle. You've got Barron who can play the Jack role, because what Jack essentially did was played it the pivot in midfield, but if Tavernier at that time Barisic went up the park, Ryan Jack dropped in and played almost like a sweeper. He would go in, he would take the ball, he's positionally sound, he could cover both sides. I think we've got the exact same as that in Connor Barron. So I agree with you, mate. I would like to see us go back to that. I think with Černý and Iggeman, you've got 2 players who can naturally come inside behind the striker. You've got 3 then up front in a triangle that are going to run for you, and it allows you then to take control of the midfield as well. Diamande will turn up on Thursday. He's been great in Europe. There's absolutely no...
Well, he won't, because he's suspended, mate.
He's suspended, so he is. Mate, do you know what? I went total mind blank here, because you were talking earlier on about Proper and Balogun, and I was like, Jesus, man, I wonder if Davies had his meds today, because he's gone mental. So yes, this is what happens when you're no well, mate. What I would say then, Davey, is potentially have Sterling sitting as the pivot, as you say, with your Barron and your Raskin. But mate, they're Raskin and Diamande are another 2 that over the last 3 or 4 games have really reverted back to type. We need them to be on top form on Thursday as well. And left back, you'd be as well just tossing a coin, wouldn't you? It's like picking dog shit or cat shit to play at left back, innit? That's a real worry area for me.
The only thing I would say is in the European games, I feel that you have to cost you more defensively, which seems strange, because you look at Ridvan's size and physicality, you would expect it to be him, but you just look at the goal that we lost at Man United at Old Trafford away. Yefty has lost that goal 4 or 5 times this season, and I just think that's a risk that I'm not prepared to take, because if we're going to get anything out of the game, to take to Spain, we can't lose an early goal. And I just think with Yefty, he'll be an easy target. I feel that Scott Kearney's saying, do you think Hadji comes into the equation now? I'll tell you where I stand on this, Ross. Hadji and Bajrami have come on the last few games, and I know Bajrami had a run and hit the bar against Hibs, but if you were to sum up their contribution in the last 4 or 5 weeks since they've come on, they've really flattered to deceive. I wouldn't have any of the two of them anywhere near my starting lineup. What about yourself?
It's hard because I'm a Hadji fan. I think he's got real ability, but I think he's now. It's came out that obviously to trigger his extension is going to cost us X amount. That kind of was put back a bit for half season to let him play. It looks to me as if he's checked out. When he came back, he had that wee bit of grit about him that he seems to have lost that edge. And over the course of 90 minutes, when there's a chance you're not going to be on the ball, you're not going to have large amounts of possession. I don't think Hadji is your guy. What I would say about Bajrami is the old fun games where he's been selected, weirdly enough, as an attacking midfielder, 10-ish kind of player. He actually plays really well if you just say to him, stay on his arse and don't let him go anywhere. Everywhere he goes, you're right beside him, and he's really good at that. But again, I just think he's a confidence player and he looks as if he would rather be anywhere else as well. So for me, none of the two of them would be starting, because I think the two of them would be vying for the positions that, as we've already spoke about, Danilo and Cherny will occupy.
And in terms of, I take it you think we'll go with a back four or a back five. What would you think? I know you said you would revert to the Gerrard. So if we're saying that we are playing the Gerrard formation, is it proper in Balogun? And if it is, would it be a worry that Balogun had a bomb scare against Dundee and that Proper, I don't think, has played since Butland knocked him out against Fenerbahce? Would that be right?
That's another omission for that Butland highlights room for the season. You never put that in there. GBH. Mate, it's slim pickings in there, isn't it? Do you know, see for his pace and stature, would you maybe stick in an Enciala?
But then the thing with Enciala is
he in the Euro squad.
He was one of the changes, mate. So he could be used, but it's a massive call. And you would think with Proper and Balogun's experience, I don't think Proper's been that bad in the Europa run, but he was having a honking first half in Fenerbahce before Butland took him out. But Balogun is a concern for me, especially.
Mate, every time he runs more than 60%, he pulls up with a hammy. That's the biggest issue I've got with him. And if they're playing a couple of strikers that are going to look to run in behind, then Balogun's got electric pace for an old guy. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, he just looks as if he's no body's no equipped for it. Father time catches up with his old David. That's one thing I will tell you. I'm feeling it myself at 36. But the worry in that area is, again, we spoke about it with the goalkeepers. Once you take Suter out, you're looking and going, well, he can do this, but he can't do that. He can do this, but he can't. And you're trying to make one decent centre half out of what's left. Do you know what I'm talking about? We've no got
That's as well why I think there's a fair shout that Liam Kelly plays, because none of your centre halves are great with the ball at their feet, other than Suter, and Suter's not an option on Thursday. So if you play Igaman up front and you've got Liam Kelly in goal, 9 times out of 10 we're going to play direct on Thursday and play off for second balls. And I think playing that way, you get away with it with Balogun and maybe Proper. I can't see us, if Butland was in goal and starting out playing it, to the side, either centre half, I can't see us that being cohesive. You're just inviting them onto yourself in areas that you don't want them to be. So I think going back to front a bit more, as ugly as that may sound, is probably going to be what suits us best come Thursday. Would you think, Ross?
Is Bailey Rice going to be out for a while?
Well, he said that he doesn't think he's going to be out too long on the post-match presser. It's just that he's not to come out for the Hibs game, but he would expect him back in training for this week. Do you think he would throw him in?
I don't know if he would. Probably not, right? Probably not. But I'm trying to think, if you put if you put Sterling and Balogun in at centre half, Sterling, big physical, bit of pace, recovery pace. Balogun just, if the ball comes up high, he did it. Sterling sitting just behind him. But that would leave you one short in your midfield. So I was thinking if you had Raskin and another with Balogun sitting, then with Balogun, fucking hell, Ross. If you had Raskin with Barron sitting, would that free you up a space in the midfield there for a Hadji, for an Igamani, or potentially after he came on at half time and done really well, would it free up a space for a Bailey Rice to maybe get his chance on the big occasion? I don't know. Ferguson, you need to remember, Ferguson himself was thrown into the Rangers team as a 17, 18-year-old and was captain in the team in his early 20s. So is there a shot in the arm that he just goes full off the scale and just goes, do you know what? You've earned your chance, go and take it. I don't know. But
can I throw it back to you, seeing Bailey Rice's appearances? Have you seen enough to suggest there's quality there that merits the hype?
No, but I've not seen him. I'm going to put him in the same bracket, and it's probably no fair as Lennon Miller, because as the rumour goes, we had the choice of the two of them. We took Rice. He was a better player at that age group, but now Lennon Miller's got, 50, 60, 80 games under his belt. But I've never seen Bailey Rice in any of his cameos in a team that's got a lot of possession take the game by the scruff of the neck the way Lennon Miller has, where he absolutely ragdolled our full midfield. But you're never going to know until you say to him, right, wee man, here's 3 or 4 games. I'm going to give you a run in the team. Go out and play without fear. Don't go out and try and do everything the day because you want to make sure you play next week. You're going to get a run. And I think that's one of the issues we've got, Davey. I think that's one of the issues we've got with youth development. We put them in. You've seen it with Enciala. Put him in, and then he has a bit of a stinker. Back out, never seen again. Never seen again. And then you look at Butland, Dessers, like they never get that. You've seen it with Cantwell, you've seen it with Hadji. We're a team that very much pick and choose who we whip off and they disappear. But the ones who deserve it over a consistent period of time seem to avoid the bullet. It's a frustration for me, and I think it's one of the worst things you can do to a young player.
No, definitely, and I agree with that, because up until Enciala made his mistake, he certainly had put in a few decent enough performances to keep himself in the team. But if you're in the mood to build somebody up, you can tear them down just as easily, and that's the risk. If you throw Bailey Rice in and he doesn't perform well, is that the end of his Rangers career? It's certainly an interesting talking point. But if we can bring it to the manager now, Ross, I think you were somebody that was quite vocal at the start, and I think the shouts that you were making weren't anything that was ridiculous, to be perfectly honest with you. But if you've been at the management game for 4 years, being a radio pundit, and you come in to take the interim job in the hope that it gets you back in, are we saying that regardless of how the Europa League ends up, it's mission failed under Barry Ferguson?
Yeah, I'm in the unstaunch brigade. I've never seen since quite happy. You've come in, you've got a Rangers man in, you've got the staunch Avengers together, and they're going to go in there and they're going to catharsis and they're going to tell everybody what it's all about and all that patter that we heard. And they have done some of that. We've got results under them. You can't take that away from them. But never at any point, Davey, have I thought, do you know what? I hope Ferguson's our manager next season. I remember folk laughing when Davy Martindale was getting linked to us. Remember before Philip Clement, people were going, "Oh, Davy Martindale deserves it," and folk were rightly laughing and going, "The Livingston, this guy got binned for Kelty Hearts, Clyde and Alloa. Like, he's never been a contender. Great that he's in. Great that he's drumming a bit of that into him. For me, I think what he's done is played it too safe. I kind of alluded to it last week. I think he thought he was auditioning for the job, and I think that's why he made the bonkers decision to try and risk Czerny ahead of this European game. I think that's why he's feared to drop Jack Butland. I think that's why Cyril Dessers is still cutting about the team, because he thought he was auditioning for a job. But quite a lot of people are on the bandwagon for Ferguson. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you can't blame Barry Ferguson. Nobody couldn't get a tune out of this team." And I'm like, if that's your opinion, fair dues. But for me, he's no go. We've been 2 down in 6 out of 7 games or something. Have we no? Like I slag Ricky all the time because he said it was 10 out of 10 after being 2-0 down at Kilmarnock, getting beat half Motherwell at Ibrox and getting absolutely horsed at Fenerbahce at Ibrox. So he's been bang average for me. You should be beating these teams if you're any sort of manager. I'd like to think, as I've said before, me and you could go on the sidelines and get a tune out of the players. But going into the summer, nah, no for me. No, even as I said last week, and I stick by it, he's probably not even in the top 20 candidates now. I've went for 10 to 20. And the rest of the team, as you say, for me, when he was a pundit, I think of other pundits who are staunch defenders of other teams who are always bigging them up and always talking their players up and doing their propaganda for them. And I look at people like Barry Ferguson that for me stuck the boot into Rangers quite a lot on his radio show and criticising people, and then he's went in and I don't see much happening on the backside of that, mate. You know, it's all these are my players and my players will do this and I'm big staunch, and I'm glad he's there the now. I think there's not enough Rangers men about the place. I've said this since Jimmy Bell and Walter Smith and people like that died, who were real mentors and helpers about the place, who drive the standards, but no long term for me, not at all. What about you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's not even won a home game yet, and to be fair, the home games that he's had, a Motherwell side that was banging out of form at the time came to Ibrox and beat us. So I just don't think it merits a discussion, to be perfectly honest with you. I always go back to John Bennett's comment when he was chairman a couple of years ago, and he was the infamous line, best in class. We're so far away from that, it's unreal at the moment. And I think I'm looking at the list today, and I know your good friend John Walker, mate, was very loud on the socials today talking about who he fancied for the job in terms of Russell Martin. I've been quite vocal saying that I would rather Martin Federable was the next Rangers manager than Russell Martin, to be perfectly honest with you, but I just don't see it. I'm worried that we go back to that, getting a manager who's ball dominant and it's all possession based stuff, and we fall into the same routine that we've been in under a Warburton, under a Kashinya, you know, under a Michael Beale, under a Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, under a Philip Clement, and there's no penetration about these sides. We need to find a manager that can win games against any type of defence, low block or counter-attack football when you're away, possibly at Pittodrie and Parkhead. We need somebody that's got that in their repertoire. And you look at the lists of managers, and I think it starts that Gerrard's still the favourite, and it goes to Russell Martin, then Barry Ferguson, and then your usual, your Muscats and everybody else that's linked. There's no a standout name there for me, mate. Where do you stand on it? Do you think that it's going to be Gerrard coming back, or do you think it's going to be something completely out of left field should the takeover officially happen?
I think it should be the guy that interviews best for the job, mate, who comes with new ideas. We've had, as you say, managers who want to have 80% possession, but it's all fart and a job at the end. Do you know what I mean? We've had that. We've had. I want somebody that comes in and just doesn't respect absolute jobbers in this league, mate. I want somebody that comes in and goes, "Oh, we're playing," when they hamper them, we're playing St Johnstone at Ibrox today. 4-3-3, but we're playing 3 up front and we're playing at a straight line of 3. We're not having a sitter. We don't need a sitter, but I'm not having a manager that wants to play, no offence to Ferguson, I'm not having a manager that wants to play 5 at the back. You've got 3 centre-halves sitting up against 1 striker, and that striker's that big ginger guy, Simon Murray. I'm not having that. So I think we give teams too much respect, mate. We're Glasgow Rangers, and I want us to go and walk all our teams. And for me, I keep saying it, there's a candidate who's been here and who's done it and who won the league by 20 odd points. And you can tell me all you want, it was a COVID season, or it was this, it was that. Other teams were getting handed the league going fucking Zoom calls during COVID. For me, I think that's who the new investors will employ. And if he comes back, I'll welcome him back, mate, because I just think he ticks all. It doesn't tick all the boxes, because there's a box at the bottom that says snaked us by putting comments out. Do I look happy? Do I look as if I'm leaving? And then buggering off. But I also don't think we backed him when we said we should have, Davey. And I think, as I've said on here before, with the amount of money that's coming into the club, they want a brand name associated with us. And Gerrard finishing his career and stuff in America, I think the opportunity sells itself, and I think that's why he'll be back.
Is it a fair point to ask? And I take that in terms of the commercial aspect. If it's American owners, absolutely, they would see that as a box office signing, guarantees bums on seats. People will buy jerseys, again, probably with his name on the back and stuff like that. So from a commercial point of view, but would it be a worry for you, Ross, that since he's left, his coaching record doesn't read very well, and he's had a mix of backroom staff? So I think he initially had Michael Beale, his assistant, when he went to Villa, and then it was Neil Critchley, and then he went to Saudi, and it ended up being back Beale again. Beale can he end up back here? So do you think maybe the backroom staff that's been assembled, guys like Neil McCann and Billy Dodds, have they got a future perhaps under a head coach, because they're already proven to be a team, they work together at Inverness? Have they got a chance of staying on even if Ferguson doesn't?
Neil McCann and Billy Dodds are equally as guilty for the last 4 or 5, 6 performances. Mate, I would like to see your boy Tomo getting. I'd love to see Kevin Thompson be given a chance, an opportunity to run about the first team. I think, listen, Gerrard being the head, as I say, I look at our midfielders, Raskin, Diamande, Barron. If you look forward, Hadji, whoever else, and with the likes of a young Lyle Cameron coming in, those players instantly give you an extra 10-15% because they're playing for somebody that they absolutely hero worshipped, whether they were an Everton fan, a Rangers fan, a Celtic fan, a Man U fan. Everybody loves Steven Gerrard, the player. It's the big debate. Gerrard, Lampard. I think he gives you and the team a lift having that name. He's somebody who's got that presence about him that when he speaks football, you listen. He's one of the only people who has been at this club since the late, great Walter Smith that you hung on every word they said. You bought into everything he said because he knows football inside out. He's done it. He dragged Liverpool to Champions League finals when they were down. Was it Istanbul they were in? Dragged them to a Champions League trophy. So for me, it just commands respect. People will tell you that Beale was the brains behind that. Kevin Thompson, for me, could do that role. The being the link between Gerrard and the players, the personable one, the one that knows his set pieces, but has also got a bit of that in him, that knows what it's like to go and smash somebody in the first 10 seconds in an Old Firm game and then see when the ball comes back round, smash them again. Who cares that it's Robbie Keane? Put them up in the air. Go and make your first impression. Go and don't show them respect. I think there's every chance Kevin Thompson would be my pick alongside Gerrard, and then potentially Gary McAllister. What's he doing resale? Is he still involved? Tell you what I really like the most about Gerrard's tenure. Tom Culshaw. Remember the set piece guy? The amount of he scored from. We looked really dangerous at all times. Somebody that had that. And that's probably what got Phil Clement hung, drawn, and quartered and papped off the pedestal, is the fact that he would not relinquish possession of set pieces, and the amount of goals we scored and the amount of chances we never made from them. People will tell you that they can't forgive him leaving. But as I've said before, Celtic fans, which you would have thought would never have forgave Brendan Rodgers leaving. He went away and wasn't exactly shit hot anywhere else, but he's came back and done it here. Ange Postecoglou won everything here, went away, and he's ready for the sack. So this is a very niche place, Davey, for me. And your record outside of here, it's totally different credentials to win in Scotland. And I think that's been proven when you look at Van Bronckhorst, you look at Clermont, people who have won trophies in other leagues but came here and absolutely get their pants pulled down. Whereas Gerrard came here and got it. He bought into the club, he bought into the fans, he brought into the siege mentality that you need to be a Rangers manager in this country. And he did not give one shit what anybody else had to say about it. He called out referees, he called out the media, he called out other teams. And he was a figurehead, mate. And I think that's what they'll go for. I think they'll go for a figurehead. Whether it is Gerrard or no, I don't know. But I just think that would make the most sense for the new takeover, the new backers as part of this takeover.
No, I think that's a fair point. And the key phrase that you use there, figurehead, I've spoke about this even as back far as when I was on the Rabble, to be perfectly honest with you. And the fact that Rangers works best as a club when they've got that all-encompassing figure. I think if we can find that balance and the right balance under the coaching staff, as you said, good friend of yours, Kevin Thompson, away for the podcast, done his, I'm sure he done his pro licence at Aston Villa because Steven Gerrard invited him down to do it there. So they've already got that existing working relationship. And obviously Tomo took the reserves when Gerrard was a manager. So that's perhaps a fair shout if Gerrard came back, that Tomo would be part of his coaching staff. And if it was Tomo, personally, he does deserve it. He's a great guy, and I wish him all the very best if he's watching. So if we can move it away to a contentious figure that's still within the club, and I don't think too many podcasts have touched on it, but I want to touch on it, and that is Niels Coppin. This is a guy for me who has totally went under the radar and deserves the utmost scrutiny as far as I'm concerned. I look at our squad, Ross, and I think it's the worst Rangers squad I have ever seen in a top flight. It doesn't have makeup there. Anything I think that you can start with next season to turn around and say there's fruits of something there. I think it needs ripped up and started again. And his remit is supposed to be that when it goes pear-shaped under a manager, he's built up enough of a nucleus there that there's something there for somebody else to work with. And unfortunately, that's not there. We've got a squad of aging players that are on overpaid salaries, and the guys that he's brought in have flattered to deceive. And you'd be lucky if we recouped any of the value that we've actually spent on them. So is it a worry that he's sort of filled all the positions and got a quick promotion and is still there in the background? Or do you think when new owners come in, he'll get found out and moved on very quickly?
I'd like to think he would. For a start, I know Ricky said on here last week that he's been demoted again quietly, but he worked his way up to director level at this club. And as you say, look at what we've spoke about all night tonight, Davey. You've got a goalie that you can't replace because the one that's on the bench isn't good enough. You've got centre halves that when one drops out, the rest of them you're trying to piece together. You're talking about playing a right back at centre half because he'll be your second best shout. We've got three in midfield, and behind them you've got a young boy in Bailey Rice. So we don't have a squad. He's not assembled a squad worth any value. And again, I was having a debate on Twitter the other day with somebody who was telling me Celtic have spent 30 million. And I'm like, but we've spent the guts of 15 million on Bajrami, Danilo, Bajrami, Diamande, Proper, Cortez. So the difference is they can go and spend 20 million on Ida and that other Belgian boy and see if they're not any good. It doesn't matter to them. They've got the money to waste. We don't have it to waste, and we really need to be getting recouping money back. We talk about a player trading model, and as you alluded to earlier, our most sellable asset, we're just going like that with his value. He should be stepping in. That's his job, is to make sure the squad's being managed the way it should. He should be saying, hold on a minute, what's happening here? We were looking at a potential getting a 10, 12 million pound for Igamani, 40 million if you listen to Twitter, but 12 million quid, say, for Igamani. What would you get from now?
No, it's a fair point. No, it's a fair point.
So we're not managing the squad. He's meant to see the full footballing operation. And for me, the footballing operation is as bad as it's ever been. You hit the nail on the head. In the top flight, this is probably the worst squad we've had. And it's since 2012 to now, it's had the most money spent on it. Like, I look at Cortez, mate, and I'm a big critic. And the reason I'm a big critic is because I watched him warming up at Tynecastle after he'd done a full pre-season in the first game of the season this year. He couldn't control the ball. His shooting was horrendous. He runs as if he's running through treacle for a young boy. And then in the first half of the game, he went half injured because he pulled a muscle trying his best to out-sprint a guy who's since hardly got a game for Hearts all season. So these are the players that, and the deals that we are making. Diamande, $4.5 million if fees are to be believed when you listen to respected Rangers podcasts, not like us diddies, but respected ones like The Review and people like that will tell you $4.5 million for Diamande, 3.5, 4 million for Cortez. We're wasting too much money, and he's overseen at least 12, 15 million of that. As you said, you're never going to recoup. I hope he has been demoted, and I hope that when the new guys come in and we get this new, he's the, what's he, technical or sporting? We're trying to get a technical director. He's a
sporting director. That's right.
So hopefully that technical director will see right through him, and he'll get wiped. But he's another one, mate. It's another payoff, Davey. The same as your Moroccan coach that's still loitering about like a bad smell. Like, what's he doing with himself?
Well, that's it. And he's on a 3.5-year contract, that boy, Ismail Shirai. So he's going to be paid up regardless of what happens. And he might get offered to the next manager. But if it's a manager with any sort of substance about him, he'll pick his own backroom staff. I've always said that. I know Celtic for years kept the same backroom staff and just changed the head coach. But I don't see that. I think if you're a manager worth any substance, you bring in your department guys that you trust because you need them in the trenches. And I think if we can just sort of round off on Paul raised a good point in the comments in regards to, obviously, before he came in, we splashed 6 million on Danilo. But Danilo's not even getting a game. And you're talking about he should be sort of managing the squad and filtering that through to the manager. And I know a manager, because Ferguson has said this in press conferences, that, you know, he looks at who performs in training. But anybody that we have spent major money on, there's so many of them there that we've depreciated the value. There's the big boy Fernandes that we brought in our January signing that, you know, that we're obviously paying a decent wage, and he's not even been quoted. He's missing. He's on milk cartons up and down the country, and nobody has seen him. So, and we're struggling at the back, and the big boy's not even getting quoted on the bench. I really question his wherewithal in terms of squad management and player recruitment. To spend your only sort of income that you had on January on a guy that's played once against Queen's Park, I think that tells you that the game's up with Coppin.
What I would say to you, mate, is how if you had seen the nose at the end of your face and went and got a Nico Katic on a 6-month loan, you wouldn't be questioning who's playing centre-half on Thursday night, would you? That's the difference. So we went and got a boy, probably paid a decent loan fee because he's a good young up-and-coming talent or whatever, and can't even, as you say, mate, he's probably not even got a match-worn tap to sell, man. He's played one game, and you know, that's the thing for me with Coppin as well, mate. Anybody could have told you this time, Christmas last year, Shankland was in red-hot form. You could have got him for 3 million quid. Just go and get him. But we would rather pay 2.5 million for a fancy name for a European loan that ended up coming in and was honking. So, mate, that worries me as well. The fact that he doesn't know what it takes to play in Scotland. They would rather go exotic name. See if Shankland's name was Shanklandinho, we would have signed him last season without a thought. And you would have probably won the league based on the Motherwell Dundee And was it Ross County, the 3 games in a row that Dessers missed sitter after sitter after sitter after sitter, and we faltered away in the league, and that's when Celtic overtook us again. So I think the worrying thing is Coppin doesn't even know what kind of player you need in Scotland, and it defies belief how he's went from head scout to chief scout to overseer of the department to fucking sporting director that in the space of 2 years or however long he's been here. As you say, for me, if I'm in that role, I'm sitting with Barry Ferguson and going like, look, man, you're only here today, the end of the year. I need you to start trying to make use of our assets. Dessers isn't working. We're not going to get money back on Dessers. Danilo, a £6 million outlay, and Igamani. We need to start playing. We need to start playing the boys. We need to give them the best opportunity to go and it's not as if you're playing them just to get their value. We've played our best football of the season when they were playing together up top. So it's, for me, there's got to be another voice in the manager's ear, that person who oversees the full football department, to be asking the questions.
And it's fair to say, Ross, isn't it, just to finish on this before we briefly touch on our predictions for Thursday. And if everybody in the comments wants to get in your predictions, I will read them out. I do apologise that I don't have access to the comments to bring them up, but we do appreciate your comments this evening. What I would say, Ross, is we're probably looking at every position is needed in the summer, starting for a goalkeeper. And we're probably looking at a new captain as well, because if Raskin doesn't sign a new deal and he maybe think this place is just too toxic for him and he's went away, the summer's the place to sell him. John Souttar is in his last 12 months his contract, and if he doesn't sign a new deal, do we probably sell him or do we let him run it down? We've let too many contracts run down, so we really are in a very precarious position with this squad. And I think the starting 11 next summer could probably be no players for this season. How do you see that?
Aye. I just wanted to touch on a comment up there. Somebody's having a go at me again for saying, not having a go, but pointing out that scouts will realise Igamani's a top player, regardless of whether he's playing out of position or not. Igamani's 22 going on 23. Igamani's not a 17-year-old boy. Because we've picked him up and he's just getting exposed to football, but people are not going to go and spend 20 million on a 22, 23-year-old boy because they think he's got potential. So for me, we need to be playing him. And I think some of the fees folk think that we are going to get for boys like that are out the window. But again, Coppin is allowing that to happen as well, mate. See contracts running down, not getting value for money. As you say, we're in a position where Souttar and potentially Raskin are going to have us over a barrel, because they can go at that this summer. Like I'm not signing an extension next year, and we're then not getting that value. We shouldn't be letting players get to this stage. We should be making them make a decision 18 months at the very least to say to them, are you going to sign on or are we going to sell you the new? Because once you get into your last year, your value drops 30%. And then if you decide to just stay and go, you leave for nothing. So 2 years to 18 months, are you going to extend? See, if you're not willing to extend, we'll need to put you in the shop window and get rid of you while your value is high. Know that I think there's a lot of value in, for example, a John Souttar. I don't think you're going to get 7, 8, 10 million for a John Souttar. Do you know what I mean? But when you've signed them for free, if you can get 3 or 4 million from them, then we need to make that decision. But you don't want to lose them for free.
No, that's very true. And Paul saying that Sterling will be in a contract as well. No, I thought he signed a new deal at the start of this season or last season. But if his runs out as well, then that just emphasises the poor mismanagement he caught him in this squad. So we spoke about Thursday earlier in terms of how we think we'll line up, Ross. What's your prediction in terms of scorer? You got anything going into Thursday? Paul seems to think 1-0, 2-1 to Rangers. How do you see it going?
Mate, could be 3-0, could be 0-3. That's the way I see it, man. Like Rangers in Europe, they seem to turn up and play different when the pressure's off. Nobody's expecting us to go through this and go into a semi-final. So there's every chance they turn up I'd like to. You're saying saying with your heart rather than your head, because I don't really know enough about Bilbao either. I don't watch Spanish football, Davey, so you're kind of going with what you're hearing and reading. But I think there's an opportunity for us to go there, not out the tie, potentially with a draw. A win would be exceptional, but I'd be telling you lies if I said I'm confident we're going to go there with a 2-goal lead, and then we can go there and defend for our lives again. What about you?
Well, I always pick a daft score prediction, so I'm going to say Rangers will win 3-2, which will be an uncomfortable victory. But we're shedding goals at the minute, and I have to be realistic and say that I can't see that stopping come Thursday. But I'll take any sort of victory. I would like a comfortable victory on Thursday, as long as the tie's still alive and gives us that wee bit of hope, because a heavy defeat and your season's over, unfortunately. But Ross, thank you very much for tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed your company, mate. That was a good one.
Before we leave,
oh yes,
we've got a bit of news to share on behalf of Care. So obviously, everybody that watches the pod and goes along with the pod will realise that recently Care, who runs the podcast's wee dog Walter, took really unwell. As a result of that, there's been a Just Giving page set up, which loads and loads of people have donated to, and honestly, we thank you for the bottom of our hearts for doing that. But on a whim in the group chat, I've suggested we try something different to raise a bit of money, and the boys thankfully have got on board with me for the first time ever. So I can announce tonight on behalf of the podcast that we will be doing a live podcast. Live from Oswald's Bar in the town centre, pretty near Central train station. It'll be limited to 50 tickets, I believe, Davey. It's not a big venue, but we're not a massive podcast. And we would be really happy if we can get 50 people there. We're going to price it at a tenner a ticket. With that tenner, you'll get a raffle ticket, which is gone towards a signed top for Gerrard's first season here, I believe. So with that tenner, you'll get entry into that raffle. We'll have other raffles on the night. We're going to do a live pod. It'll replace our Friday pod that night. I believe you're coming, Davey.
Well, it's to be finalised. Unfortunately, I've got a promotion at work, I won't know my shifts until the last week in April, first week in May. But if it doesn't clash, I'll definitely be there. And if I can't be there at the start in the night or whatever, I'll buy a ticket and appear after my work or whatever. But I'll do my best endeavour to make sure I can be there, mate.
So I think, obviously, for the people watching, people listening, if you're interested in coming along, if you can contact the Not An Our Rangers podcast Twitter, Carol, pick them up for there, because as I say, it's got to be really controlled. If you want to come and hang about with me and Davey and JD and Kerr, Gary's gone, I'm not sure who else. I think there's another couple going to maybe show up, some guests and stuff, and every penny that we make on that night will go towards Walter's treatment. So Kerr and his family signed Walter up to life-saving surgery. It touches me in my heart because he's a wee Frenchie and I've got one myself, but his insurance are only paying a fraction of the overall cost, and it's just to help Kerr and his family out. So every penny raised on that night will go towards Walter's ongoing treatment and paying his vet's bill. So a really good cause, a really good night, hopefully. A live podcast, some chances for questions and answers with some of the boys, and after it we'll go downstairs into Oswald's and have a good night and get to meet some of the people that support the channel. So if you can get your tickets, come along and see us, spend a bit of time with us. But for everybody who's already donated through the Just Giving page and sent well wishes and that, on behalf of Kerr and his family, I'd like to send a lot of love to you, because I know through speaking to Kerr that's really helped him and his family at this kind of hard time. Just for Robert there, so the dog is he's doing as well as can be. He's got ongoing treatment, but at the moment it's really a day at a time, and hopefully he keeps improving. But Kerr assures me that he's back eating, drinking, and playing with his ball. So I did say if we can teach him how to catch the ball by Thursday, you'll maybe see him out at Ibrox.
And that's right. And I was going to say it's going to be the first Rangers podcast night where there's bigger tits on show than a night at Lana Wolves, mate.
That's half-time show, mate. That's it. No, so cat's out of the bag. We're doing a wee something. It'll be really intimate. Everybody will have a chance to have input into it, and hopefully we can get rid of if we can get rid of the 50 tickets, it's 500 quid, and then whatever we make on raffles. A big massive thank you to Rosa Oswald, who are allowing us the use of the venue free of charge as well, which is a massive help. And if this is a success, Davey, you never know. We might end up making it a more
absolutely a regular thing. Absolutely. No, and well said, Ross. That was very well put, mate. I really enjoyed your company tonight, mate. And anybody watching this back, I think you've certainly hit the nail on the head with all your points tonight. Very well put. So thanks again, mate, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks to everybody in the comments. And it's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Good night.